You want to know what betrayal feels like? Let me paint you a picture. Imagine sitting at a table surrounded by people who are supposed to be your family, watching your younger sister bask in applause and cheers, while she announces to everyone that she's getting the hotel shares, the empire that you've bled for, and that you're getting nothing, absolutely nothing. That's where my story begins. And trust me, it doesn't get prettier from there. My name is Katherine, and I've spent the last 8 years of my life buried in spreadsheets, financial reports, and crisis management for our family's hotel business. While my sister was out posting Instagram photos in designer clothes and partying with her friends, I was the one negotiating with creditors, managing staff, dealing with suppliers, and making sure the lights stayed on. I was the one who sacrificed my social life, my relationships, and my peace of mind to keep this business afloat. And for what? To be humiliated at a year-end party in front of investors, staff members, and extended family, who had no idea what was really going on behind the scenes. The party was lavish, of course. Mom never did anything halfway. Crystal chandeliers, champagne fountains, a string quartet playing in the corner, the whole 9 yards. It was the kind of event that screamed success and prosperity. Everyone was dressed to the nines, laughing, toasting, celebrating another year of what they thought was triumph. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. But I stood there, glass of champagne in hand, watching the theater of it all, feeling my stomach churn with a mixture of rage and disgust. And then she did it. My precious little sister, standing up in her designer dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, tapping her glass to get everyone's attention. I watched her, already knowing what was coming, feeling that familiar knot of anger tightening in my chest. She had that smug smile on her face, that look of triumph that she always wore when she thought she'd won something she didn't earn. "I have an announcement to make," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness and genuine arrogance. "Mom has decided to transfer the hotel shares to me. I'll be taking over the family business." She paused, for dramatic effect, then looked directly at me with that poisonous smile. "Some people work hard, but in the end, it's about who Mom trusts with her legacy. And Katherine, well, you have nothing." The room erupted. Cheers, applause, congratulations flowing from every direction. People rushed to her side, hugging her, toasting her future success. I watched grown men and women, who should have known better, fawn over her, like she'd just announced she'd cured cancer. My sister stood there, soaking it all in, occasionally glancing my way to make sure I was witnessing her moment of glory. Oh, I was witnessing it all right, every excruciating second of it. My mother sat at the head of the table, and I noticed how she wouldn't quite meet my eyes. She was smiling, but it was tight, uncomfortable. She knew. God, she knew what she'd done, what she was allowing to happen, and she couldn't even look at me. That hurt worse than anything my sister could say. The betrayal from the woman who gave birth to me, who watched me sacrifice everything for this family, cut deeper than any knife ever could. But I didn't react, not yet. I stood there with my champagne glass, and I felt this cold calm wash over me. You know that moment when you're so angry, so hurt, so absolutely done, with everything that you move past emotion, into this crystalline clarity? That's where I was. I could feel my heart pounding, could feel the heat rising in my face, but outwardly, I was ice. I smiled, not a warm smile, not a congratulatory smile, but something cold and sharp. I raised my eyebrow and looked directly at my mother. The room was still buzzing with excitement, people still crowding around my sister, but I spoke clearly enough for those nearby to hear. "Mom," I said, my voice cutting through the noise like a blade. "Should I tell them, or will you?" The effect was instantaneous. The conversations around us died mid-sentence. Glasses stopped clinking. The quartet seemed to sense the shift in atmosphere, and their music faded. Everyone turned to look at me, then at my mother, then back at me. The silence that fell over that room was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop on that expensive carpeting. My sister's face, oh, I wish I had a photograph of that moment. Her smugness cracked like cheap porcelain. Confusion flooded her features, then something that looked like fear. She tried to maintain her composure, tried to keep that superior smile in place, but I could see the panic in her eyes. "Tell, what?" she yelled, her voice cracking on the last word. The desperation in her tone was almost satisfying. Almost. I looked around the room at all those expectant faces. Family members who'd always favored my sister because she was prettier, more charming, easier to be around. Investors who'd shaken my hand countless times, while I explained financial strategies they barely understood. Staff members who'd worked under my management for years. They all deserved to know the truth. They all deserved to see what was really happening behind the facade of success and prosperity. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. Just a simple manila folder, but the weight of what it contained was crushing. Years of secrets, lies, and mismanagement, all documented in black and white. I opened it slowly, deliberately, letting the tension build. My mother's face had gone pale. She was shaking her head slightly, a silent plea for me to stop, but I was done protecting her, done protecting this family's reputation, at the expense of my own sanity. Since we're making announcements about the hotel, I said, my voice steady despite the rage burning in my chest, let me share some facts. The shares my sister is so excited to inherit? They're worthless. Actually, worse than worthless, they come with a mountain of debt that would crush anyone foolish enough to take them on. I pulled out the first document, holding it up for everyone to see. This is a loan agreement Mom signed 8 months ago. $3 million borrowed against the hotel's assets at a predatory interest rate because our credit was so bad, no legitimate bank would touch us. I let that sink in, watching faces around the room shift from confusion to concern. And this, I continued, pulling out another paper, is a lawsuit from our primary supplier. We owe them $600,000 in unpaid invoices. They're taking us to court next month. Another document. This is a notice from the city about code violations that will cost approximately $400,000 to fix, or we lose our operating license. Another. This is a letter from our insurance company canceling our policy due to unpaid premiums. We've been operating without proper insurance for 3 months. My sister tried to interrupt. Katherine, you're being dramatic. Every business has debt and challenges. Sit down, I shouted, and the fury in my voice made her flinch. You want the hotel? You want the shares? Then you get to hear exactly what you're inheriting. You don't get to waltz in here, take credit for work you never did, and claim a prize without knowing the price. I turned to address the whole room, my voice shaking now with barely contained emotion. For 8 years, I've worked 60-70-hour weeks trying to save this business. I've deferred my own salary 12 times to make payroll for our staff. I've maxed out my personal credit cards to cover expenses that Mom refused to acknowledge. I've lied to creditors, begged suppliers for more time, and performed financial miracles just to keep us operational. My mother finally spoke, her voice weak. Katherine, please. Please what, Mom? Please keep quiet. Please continue to cover for your mistakes. Please let my sister take a bow for a success that doesn't exist. The pain in my voice was raw now, all pretense of control slipping away. I begged you to let me restructure. I begged you to cut costs, to sell some assets, to make the hard decisions that could have saved us. But you refused. You wanted to maintain appearances. You wanted everyone to think we were still thriving, still successful, still the prestigious family business everyone remembered. I pulled out more documents, my hands trembling now. Instead, you took out predatory loans. You made bad investments with money we didn't have. You hired your friends' incompetent children for positions we didn't need, because you couldn't say no. You threw parties like this one that cost more than we made in a month, all to keep up the illusion of prosperity. The investors were whispering among themselves now, their faces dark with concern. I could see them calculating their losses, planning their exits. Good, they should run. This was a sinking ship, and I was done going down with it. My sister found her voice again, angry now instead of scared. You're sabotaging us. You're jealous because Mom chose me, so you're trying to destroy everything. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Destroy it? Destroy it? I'm the only thing that's kept this disaster from completely imploding. You want to know why Mom chose you? I turned to my mother, tears burning in my eyes now. Why don't you tell her, Mom? Tell her the real reason you're transferring the shares to her, and not to me. My mother was crying now, mascara running down her face. She shook her head, unable to speak. I'll tell them then, I said, my voice breaking. Mom is transferring the shares to my sister, because I refused to take them. 3 months ago, when she first suggested it, I said no. I told her I wouldn't inherit this nightmare. I wouldn't attach my name to this financial catastrophe. I wouldn't spend the rest of my life drowning in debt that I didn't create while trying to salvage something that's already dead. The room was completely silent now. My sister's face had gone from smug to confused to horrified in the span of minutes. She looked at Mom, searching for a denial that didn't come. But instead of being honest with you, I continued, looking at my sister with something between pity and anger. Instead of explaining the real situation, Mom let you believe you were being honored. She let you think you were the chosen one, the favorite daughter, the one trusted with the family legacy. When the truth is, she's desperately trying to find someone, anyone willing to take on this burden. And I was smart enough to refuse. I pulled out the final document, the one that hurt the most to reveal. This is Mom's personal bankruptcy filing. She's been working with a lawyer for 6 weeks. She's planning to declare personal bankruptcy and walk away from the hotel completely. The shares she's promising you? They'll be part of the bankruptcy estate. You'll inherit nothing but creditors and lawsuits. My sister collapsed into her chair, her face in her hands. The room erupted in chaos, investors demanding answers, family members arguing, staff members panicking about their jobs. But I felt strangely calm now. The truth was out. The weight I'd been carrying for years was finally lifted. If you've ever been in a situation where you knew the truth would destroy everything, but keeping silent was destroying you, hit that subscribe button, because this story gets even more complicated, and you need to hear what happened next. The party fell apart quickly after that. Investors started leaving in groups, their faces set in grim determination. I knew they'd be contacting their lawyers before the night was over, trying to figure out how to minimize their losses. Family members scattered, some coming to me demanding more information, others surrounding my mother in a protective circle, as if shielding her from my words could somehow make them untrue. My sister sat frozen at the table, still in shock. Part of me felt sorry for her. She'd been used as a pawn in Mom's desperate game, set up to be humiliated. But that sympathy was small compared to the years of resentment I'd built up watching her coast through life while I struggled to hold everything together. The staff members were the ones I felt worst about. They'd worked hard, been loyal, and now they were finding out at a party that their jobs were probably doomed. Several of them approached me quietly, asking if it was really as bad as I'd made it sound. I couldn't lie to them anymore. I told them to start looking for other positions, to update their resumes, to prepare for the worst. My mother finally approached me as the last guests were leaving. Her makeup was ruined from crying, her designer dress somehow looking less elegant than it had hours before. "How could you?" she whispered. "How could you humiliate your family like this?" Humiliate me? The audacity of that question nearly took my breath away. How could I? How could you, Mom? How could you run this business into the ground? How could you lie to investors, to your employees, to your own daughters? How could you try to trick my sister into taking on your failures while making her think it was an honor? "I was trying to save the family legacy," she said. And she actually seemed to believe it. "No," I said firmly. "You were trying to save your pride. There's a difference. The legacy was already lost. Months ago. Years ago, maybe. You could have been honest. You could have worked with me to wind things down responsibly, to protect the employees, to deal with creditors fairly. Instead, you doubled down on the lies, and you wanted me to be complicit in tricking my own sister." "She could have turned it around," Mom argued weakly. "She doesn't even know how the business operates. She's never read a financial statement, never managed staff, never dealt with a supplier or a creditor. You were setting her up for catastrophic failure, and you know it." I shook my head, feeling exhausted suddenly. "I'm done, Mom. I'm done covering for you. Done sacrificing for a family that doesn't appreciate it. Done setting myself on fire to keep everyone else warm." In the weeks that followed, everything collapsed exactly as I'd predicted. The lawsuit from our suppliers moved forward. More creditors came out of the woodwork, demanding payment. Investors pulled their funding and threatened their own legal action. The city moved forward with code violation proceedings. It was a complete disaster, and it all became very public. My mother did file for bankruptcy, though the process was complicated by all the business entanglements. My sister, to her credit, actually tried to understand the financial situation once the shock wore off. She spent hours going through documents, meeting with lawyers and accountants, trying to see if there was any way to salvage something. There wasn't. The hotel was too far gone. The family turned on me, of course. I became the villain in their story, the jealous daughter who destroyed the family business out of spite. Never mind that the business was already destroyed before I said a word. Never mind that I'd tried for years to fix things while being ignored and dismissed. In their version of events, everything would have been fine if I'd just kept my mouth shut and let Mom continue her charade. Extended family members called me selfish, vindictive, cruel. Cousins I'd grown up with stopped speaking to me. My aunt told me I'd broken my mother's heart. The few family members who understood what I'd done, who acknowledged that I'd been put in an impossible position, were drowned out by the chorus of blame. My sister and I had one final conversation before everything officially fell apart. She came to my apartment late one evening, looking exhausted and years older than she had at the party. "I get it now," she said quietly. "What you've been dealing with, the stress, the impossible choices. I'm sorry I didn't see it before." It wasn't quite forgiveness, and it didn't erase years of resentment, but it was something. "I'm sorry you got caught in the middle of this," I told her honestly. "I'm sorry, Mom, put both of us in this position." "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" she asked. "About the financial problems? Would you have believed me? Or would you have thought I was just being dramatic, just being jealous like everyone says I am now?" She didn't answer, because we both knew the truth. She wouldn't have believed me. Not until she saw the evidence herself. The hotel closed 6 weeks after the party. Staff members were let go, with minimal severance, because there was no money for more. The building went into foreclosure. Everything our family had built over 2 generations was gone, sold off to pay creditors who would still only get pennies on the dollar. I'd already left by then. 2 weeks after the party, I'd started job hunting. My experience managing the hotel, dealing with complex financial situations, and crisis management made me attractive to several companies. I took a position as operations director for a small but stable hospitality company, 3 states away. It paid well, had reasonable hours, and most importantly, it had no connection to my family whatsoever. Leaving felt like breaking free from chains I'd worn so long I'd forgotten they were there. Yes, I was starting over in a new city where I knew no one. Yes, I was leaving behind everything familiar, but familiar had become toxic, and I needed to breathe clean air again. The hardest part wasn't the move, or the new job, or even the family estrangement. The hardest part was processing all the anger and pain I'd suppressed for years. In the quiet of my new apartment, with no crisis to manage, and no family to protect, all those emotions came flooding back. I cried more in those first few months away than I had in the previous 8 years combined. I was angry at my mother for her financial irresponsibility and her dishonesty. I was angry at my sister for her obliviousness and entitlement. I was angry at extended family for their willingness to believe the worst about me. But mostly, I was angry at myself for staying so long, for sacrificing so much, for believing that my loyalty and hard work would somehow be valued or reciprocated. Therapy helped. My new insurance actually covered mental health services, unlike our family's deteriorating policy. I found a therapist who specialized in family trauma and dysfunctional dynamics. Through our sessions, I began to understand that what I'd experienced wasn't just stress or bad luck, it was a pattern of scapegoating and exploitation that had probably been present my whole life. I was the responsible one, the one who could be counted on to fix things, to sacrifice, to carry burdens beyond my capacity. And that role had been assigned to me so early and so completely that I'd never thought to question it. My sister was the golden child, protected and praised regardless of her contributions. Mom was the matriarch whose comfort and image had to be maintained at all costs, and I was the workhorse, valuable only for what I could provide. Understanding this pattern didn't erase the pain, but it helped me make sense of it. It helped me see that the problem wasn't me, wasn't my failure to work hard enough, or be loyal enough, or sacrifice enough. The problem was a system that demanded infinite sacrifice while offering no appreciation or reciprocity. Slowly, painfully, I began to heal. I made new friends in my new city, People who knew me only as Katherine, the operations director, not Katherine, the family disappointment. I dated a bit, though trust issues made that challenging. I discovered hobbies I'd abandoned years ago, when all my time went to the hotel. I remembered what it felt like to have weekends off, to take vacations, to live for myself, instead of for a failing business, and an ungrateful family. About a year after I left, my sister called. She'd moved away too, taken a job in marketing for someone else's company. She was learning the business from the ground up this time, earning her position instead of expecting it to be handed to her. "I understand now," she said, "why you were so angry. Why you couldn't stay silent anymore. I'm working 40-hour weeks at an entry-level salary, and it's exhausting. And you were doing so much more than this, for so much longer, with no appreciation." We talked for 2 hours that night. It didn't fix everything between us, didn't erase years of resentment and hurt, but it was a start. She apologized for her part in how things had gone. I apologized for the public nature of my revelation, for not finding a way to tell the truth that was less humiliating for everyone involved. "I don't know if there was a better way," she admitted. "You'd tried telling Mom privately for years, and she wouldn't listen. And if you'd told me privately, I probably wouldn't have believed you without proof." She was right. The public revelation had been brutal, but it had also been necessary. Sometimes the truth can't emerge gently. Sometimes it has to explode to be heard. My mother and I haven't reconciled. She still sees herself as the victim in this story, still believes that, if I'd just been a better daughter, if I'd just supported her unconditionally, everything would have worked out. She tells anyone who'll listen that I destroyed the family business, that my jealousy and cruelty cost everyone their inheritance. I used to let that bother me. I used to lie awake at night, composing arguments in my head, imagining conversations where I could make her understand. But eventually, I realized that she'll never understand because she doesn't want to. Accepting responsibility for her actions would mean confronting years of bad decisions and their consequences. It's easier for her to blame me. So I let her have her version of events. I stopped trying to convince family members of the truth. The people who mattered, the ones capable of seeing the situation clearly, already knew. The others had chosen their narrative, and nothing I said would change it. Here's what I learned from all of this. Family loyalty is not the same as family sacrifice. Loyalty means caring about people, supporting them when you can, being there in times of need. Sacrifice means setting yourself on fire to keep others warm, destroying your own well-being to maintain someone else's comfort. I'd confused the two for years, thinking that being a good daughter meant accepting any burden, tolerating any treatment, sacrificing endlessly for people who wouldn't do the same for me. I learned that sometimes, the kindest thing you can do is tell the truth, even when it hurts. My sister needed to know what she was really being offered. The investors needed to know where their money was actually going. The employees needed to know their jobs were at risk. Protecting them from the truth wasn't kindness, it was complicity in a lie that would eventually hurt them worse. I learned that standing up for yourself will often make you the villain in someone else's story. People who benefit from your silence and your sacrifice will call you selfish when you finally refuse to enable them. Family members who've never had to make hard choices will judge you for the choices you make. And you have to be okay with that. You have to accept that you can't control how others perceive you, only how you act according to your own values. Most importantly, I learned that sometimes you have to leave to save yourself. Not every relationship can be fixed. Not every family dynamic can be made healthy. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and ultimately for everyone is to step away from a toxic situation and refuse to participate in it anymore. It's been 3 years now since that party. 3 years since I watched my sister announce her inheritance and felt that cold rage wash over me. 3 years since I asked Mom if I should tell them, or if she would. 3 years since the whole carefully constructed facade came crashing down. My life is so different now. I'm successful in my career, respected by colleagues who value my expertise. I have healthy friendships built on mutual support, rather than one-sided sacrifice. I sleep through the night, without anxiety, dreams about creditors and lawsuits. I can enjoy my weekends, without guilt. I'm learning what it means to have boundaries, to say no, to prioritize my own well-being alongside others' needs. Am I happy? That's a complicated question. I'm healing, which isn't the same as happy, but might be more important. I'm building a life based on authenticity, rather than obligation. I'm discovering who I am beyond the roles I was assigned. And yes, there are moments, increasingly frequent ones, where I feel something like happiness. Real happiness, not the fake smile I wore through years of silent suffering. Do I regret what I did at that party? Some days, yes. I regret the pain it caused, the relationships it destroyed, the public humiliation my mother and sister endured. But most days, no. Because that moment of brutal honesty freed me from a prison I'd been locked in for years. It ended a pattern of exploitation and dishonesty that would have continued indefinitely. It gave my sister information she desperately needed, and it allowed me to finally stop sacrificing myself for people who would never appreciate it. If you're in a situation where you're expected to sacrifice endlessly, where your well-being matters less than keeping others comfortable, where telling the truth makes you the villain, please know that you deserve better. You deserve reciprocity, appreciation, and relationships built on honesty rather than enabling. And sometimes, the hardest and bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who can't or won't give you that. My name is Katherine, and I destroyed my family's hotel business by telling the truth at a party. Except, I didn't destroy it. It was already destroyed by years of financial mismanagement and dishonesty. I just refused to keep pretending otherwise. I refused to let my sister walk into a trap without knowing it was there. I refused to continue sacrificing myself for a lost cause. Was it the right choice? I believe it was. Not because it was easy or painless or led to a happy ending where everyone reconciles and learns their lesson, but because it was honest, and because it freed me from a role that was destroying me piece by piece. Sometimes you don't get to save everyone. Sometimes you can only save yourself, and that has to be enough. If this story resonated with you, if you've experienced family dynamics that demanded too much while giving too little, please share this video, leave a comment about your experience, and subscribe for more honest conversations about the difficult choices we sometimes have to make. Your story matters too, and you're not alone in this struggle.